From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
Welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is a weekly podcast, and it is about consumption. We are proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find all of our previous episodes, all of our upcoming episodes, and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. But I have people with me this week. I have Sean with me, who's the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. Sean, how are you today?
Hi, John.
Hi. And with that joyful hello, we also welcome our guest, the Terrifier queen herself, Jordana.
Woo! Hi,
Jordana,
guys.
how are you?
I am fantastic now that I'm hanging with you guys tonight, talking Terrifier.
It's been a long time, and yes, we are going to talk about Terrifier, Sean's favorite topic, because he loves clowns. I'm going to put it out there. I've been putting off having another guest on because there's another movie that someone wants to talk about with us that involves a clown. And I was like, I can't do that until after Terrifier 3 because I think Sean has like a one clown movie a year limit. And we already pushed it once when we did Killer Clowns and Terrifier in the same year. I don't think I can do it a second time.
We might have been done Terrifier 2 in that same year. Maybe.
Yeah, you were not happy about it.
No.
So it's been almost a year, probably a little bit more than a year. And now we're back to talk about Terrifier 3. And I'll say it now, Gabby, I'm sorry in advance, but we will eventually get to the movie that you want to talk about. I just have to let Sean be angry at one clown at a time. So
I need time to recover and decompress.
Before we get into Terrifier, Jordana, you're our guest. We want to, again, welcome you.
Thank you.
Tell people where they can find you, because you got a whole bunch of stuff that's always going on.
My God, I know I'm crazy. You can find me on Instagram with Pretty Killer Podcasts, Terrifying 3, and Future Creatures DTF, TikTok, YouTube. No more Twix. We're done with that.
Fuck that shit.
I'm not on the, is it Blue Ski? What is the new thing?
Blue Sky?
Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Not on that yet. Maybe I'll add that to 2025. But
I'm enjoying it so far. So far, there's not as many twat waffles on there, and the ones that are on there, they're pretty easy to ignore. So that's a good thing.
even better. Well, maybe I'll sign up tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
John, guess what?
Chicken butt.
This is a video podcast.
This is a video podcast. Sean, why don't you tell people about that? Because you're better at it than I am.
Yeah, so if you
Sean gives great video.
if you listen or watch on Spotify, this is a video podcast now. You can also go to YouTube and watch it on YouTube. But all the other places still going to be audio. It might sound a little different. We're doing a little bit of different editing to fit the video format, but it's a video podcast. So go watch us and look at our ugly faces.
Oh,
That's right. Without further ado, we've waited all this time. We're here to talk about Terrifier. Let's talk about Terrifier. We start each week that we talk about a movie with a third-party review. So this week, we're going to go to Rotten Tomatoes. And Sean, I picked this review specifically for you. This review comes from Connor K., who I think has been read before. But he says, an odd attempt at an awkward comedy about a clown trying to find his way in the world. 1.5 out of 5 stars.
Why do all these guest reviews, they're never good?
trying to find his way in the world.
It's intentional.
I fucking love it.
So, Sean, why don't you get us started here? What is Terrifier 3?
Okay, to find that out, we go to this website. It's called IMDB.com, and we type in the words Terrifier 3, and a movie comes up, and it says on the top, never know if it's the storyline or the plot, oh, this gets a 6.4 out of 10 from 37,000 ratings. The popularity is down to number 42. I guess it was 5 from some number. I think that's how you read that. So we go to the storyline of the plot, whichever one's up on the top. It says, Art the Clown is set to unleash chaos on the unsuspecting residents of Miles County as they peacefully drift off to sleep on Christmas Eve. And then we scroll on down to the storyline. This is not care of anyone because there's no name attached to this, but it says 5 years after surviving Art the Clown's Halloween massacre, Sienna and Jonathan are still struggling to rebuild their shattered lives. As the holiday season approaches, they try to embrace the Christmas spirit and leave the horrors of the past behind. But just as they think they're safe, Art returns, determined to turn their holiday cheer into a new nightmare. The festive season quickly unravels as Art unleashes his twisted brand of terror proving that no holiday is safe.
Very nice.
Yes.
So usually I'll do a little Cliff Notes like thing here, but I'm going to ask the Terrifier Queen since she's here. Jordana, can you give us a very quick breakdown on the plot of this movie before we get into spoilers, just real high level type stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, Art's back and he's in a goddamn Santa suit and he is embracing the new look and he's just trying to conquer Sienna and open the gates of hell.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, Sean, who's in this movie?
There are people in this movie.
Quite a few of them.
Yeah,
Yes.
there are a few. Lauren LaVera. Is that LaVera? Why am I saying it so weird? Lauren LaVera is Sienna. We have David Howard Thornton again as Art the Clown, reprising his role. Elliot Fulham as Jonathan. Antonella Rose as Gabby. There is also Chris Jericho, Tom Savini. You've probably heard of these people. Jason Patrick finally makes an appearance as Sienna's father, Michael. And then there are a couple other people.
You're skipping over Clint Howard?
Oh, well,
He's in
yeah,
the
but
building.
that was going to be in my likes. It was going to be in my likes
okay.
column.
Oh. I guess we'll start with, this is going to be a spoiler heavy episode. This is a new movie. It's only been on streaming at the time of this recording for about 2 weeks or so, and it came out in October of this year, so maybe 2 months or so. I have a strong suspicion that the majority of people that want to see a Terrifier movie have already seen this. But for those that haven't or are just curious to hear our take on it, I'm just going to put it out there now because I don't know. There's enough shit that happens in this movie that I don't know how we can really talk about it without ruining something. So this is your spoiler warning from here on forward. Well, we have the Terrifier Queen here. Jordana, what were your expectations going into this? Because I think you probably had more opinions on this than anyone I know of on the planet going into this movie.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I was scared. Like with any new movie in the franchise, it's always scary to think of what could happen, what they're going to do. Of course, I was excited for it, but I was hesitant because, I mean, I just don't want it to, I didn't want it to flop. So,
That's fair.
yeah.
Sean?
So, I can't really say I had many expectations. My expectation was that this was going to be a movie that I was probably not going to enjoy, and it was going to have some kind of Christmas bend to it. Let's be honest. That's pretty much the expectation going into this film.
Yes.
How about you,
So
John?
for me, I went into this guy the same way I did the first two movies. I go into pretty much any movie that's new with exceedingly low expectations because it makes it harder to be disappointed. I kind of went into this not expecting to have many questions about Art the Clown answered, and that we'll find out was not the case in this movie. And I expected to see a excessive body count. I expected to see children getting killed, and I expected to see Santa shenanigans. How I fall on the scale of like whether or not that's good or bad remains to be seen, but my expectations were pretty much met. This movie really didn't pull a lot of Art didn't pull a lot of tricks out of his bag that necessarily surprised me in this one.
So can I rewind your statement? Did you say you did or did not expect to learn much about Art?
I did not expect to learn much about Art the Clown, and we learned quite a bit about Art the Clown in this particular movie.
Do we?
Like we have, yes,
Oh, okay.
as much as Damien Leone wants us to know. So basically, I mean, we might as well just go into it now. I don't like that we took 3 movies to get to the point where I feel like they kind of gave us an idea of what the fuck Art is. Because really, for the first 2 movies, you kind of watch the first movie thinking like, oh, this is just a fucked up guy until the very end of the movie. Then you watch the second movie like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I watched 2.5 hours of this and I have more questions now than when I started. This movie, they flat out take a 5-minute, side quest with Jason Patrick of all people and tell you exactly what Art the Clown is and where this story is going. So is that good or bad? I guess that's up to interpretation. I'm sure we'll talk about that in more detail, but they do answer that question to an extent.
Can someone on this show, can they enlighten me as to what they learned about Art the Clown? I'm going to let you take that one, Jordana.
So my take on it was that it was a serial killer, and like the whole thing with Sienna is like she's battling him and he's like the the carrier to carry it out. That's what I pulled from it, because I still feel like I didn't have answered questions 100% on who Art the Clown is. And I hear we're getting that in 4, is that we're going to get more of an Art backstory, which I was hoping for in 3. But I mean, we just got little tiny breadcrumbs. And I feel like he really wasn't, not that he wasn't the star, but there's another character that kind of was like villain dominant in this movie.
So for me, what I took from it, and we are getting another movie that's going to tell us more of that, because there's, not to plug too many other shows, but there is a David Howard Thornton interview on Last Podcast on the Left, I think it is. And he flat out tells you, yes, that's what's happening, but I'm not going to tell you anything past that, in so many words. Like, that's what's going to happen. Whatever he was prior to being Art the Clown, I think that's still up to interpretation. But Art the Clown, what he is in these movies, is a demonic entity. And it appears he's being controlled or powered by someone that's chained to him. In the first 2 movies, it's the little girl with a fucked up face and the pigtails that shits on the floor. In this movie, it appears to be Vicky, who shits on the floor and jerks off with glass.
Oh,
so
God.
Yeah. You know,
I've done that before. It sucks.
Spoilers.
Would not recommend.
I would not.
0 out of 10.
No.
So
did you
Not
gain
a good
that
time.
from this movie, or did you read something that told you that?
I gained that from this movie primarily on the second time that I watched it, because the first time that I watched it, Jordana was in the middle of a fucking hurricane, so I couldn't vent to her
Yes.
because she was all busy dealing with that. So I vented to a friend of the show, Sam. I was like, so what the fuck's going on? This demon here, this fucking, did Sienna's dad just make this guy up? Is this what we're supposed to imply? Is that he was made up by this drawing? The second time that I watched it, the scene with Jason Patrick specifically, or scenes with him in it, it does a much better job. Like, maybe it's just because I watched it with a more, I don't know, astute eye the second time around, but it really details more of what this current iteration of Art the Clown is. And by current, I mean, I'm taking a guess that when Art the Clown was just a human, he probably wasn't this, maybe he was a clown, but he didn't have the whole get up and the whole shtick going on. He was probably just some fucked up serial killer. And now that he's transformed, he's using this for, because he likes theatrics.
I mean, he is a clown.
Yeah.
So
I did gather that he was a demon. So I did get that out of this, but that's, I mean, I didn't have any questions about Art the Clown, but I didn't get anything answered either. Besides, how deep could my rage be?
Oh, it goes deep.
It does.
So I recently watched the first one again, and I feel like he turns into that demonic entity at the end of 1, because in the beginning of 1, you see him as a dude, like, because you see him bare face putting on his makeup. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he went through 1 being like a serial killer or doing whatever he was doing. And then at the end, when all the shit transpires and rolls over into 2, that's when he gains that entity. That's just what I'm taking from it, because it's not that I didn't pay attention.
Forgot about that part.
Yes.
No, I forgot all about that in part 1. And I actually had thought about watching all 3 of them leading up to this. And then I just didn't have time to do it. So I only, because, 2 is too fucking long.
Well, you know me, I just watch
But that makes
Terrifier by
sense.
free time
Well, yeah.
all the time.
I think
I would expect nothing less.
I think it's also fair to think that Damien Leone just throws whatever he wants against the wall and see what sticks. I don't think necessarily trying to dissect this film, not to name another podcast, but not to, like, we don't have to get too deep into the weeds about what this is actually about, because I don't think that he knows what this is about. I'll just say this now. I think that this movie, we can talk about it, obviously, that's why we're here, but I think that this movie is a bunch of shit that he thought would look really cool, and he wanted to string it together. And it's like a test of endurance to watch this movie. And I just think that he thought, like, that will look really cool if we do this. Like, this will be a really cool effect to do. And I'm going to think of how I can put somebody through this thing to make it look cool. And we'll figure out the story later. Because we get into this movie. This is a 2-hour and 5-minute movie. Say what we will. We comment about movie time, runtime all the time. It's a good 35 minutes before anything anything plot related happens at all.
That's fair.
So I'm going to walk you back. In regards to the first movie, I can agree with you because I think if you gave Damien Leone truth serum and said, hey, this little, hour, 15 minute, whatever that you did, what do you really think is going to happen with that? And the fact that it took 8 years to get the second movie, and then we got the second one in such quick succession, I highly doubt that he had much of a roadmap between 1 and 2. But with how quick 2 and 3 came out, and thinking about what happens in 2, what happens in 3, and how these stories are supposed to go together, I think that he probably did have a roadmap at least for 2 and 3. Whether or not he's still working that out, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's still tinkering with whatever 4 is going to turn into. But I think there's enough breadcrumbs in 2 that reappear in part 3 to make me think that he at least had a pretty good idea of where he's going to try to take the story between 2 and 3. And in fairness, I was right there with you saying, like, these movies are fine, but I don't think there's a fucking story in these movies. I don't feel that way at this point. I will say it's not the best story. It's not the strongest writing. And I still feel like he needs a fucking editor because there's no reason this movie should be 2 hours plus. But I do think that between the 2 movies, he's pieced enough things together to make me think, okay, at least between 2 and 3, he had an idea of where he was trying to go with this story.
And I completely agree because I feel like and I've said this many times that I've spoken about Terrifier, that I think the first one was just no one knows who the fuck he is. He's just going around and brutal. I mean, like the hacksaw kill. Like he did it for a reaction.
Still hasn't been topped in my opinion.
Same. I completely agree. But I think Terrifier as a standalone with no plot was fine. I liked watching it. It made me feel a certain way, like about older, like 80s gore and like movies. But I feel like into 2 and 3, then the cohesion started to try to happen, but it's not like 100%. Like it's still loading as it's going. Because it's
I don't think that you need, how can I put this? I don't think that a quick turnaround between a movie to another movie means that you had ideas and you had a plan. I think that means I've got people that are interested in this thing, so why don't I make another one of these things?
Here's why I would disagree with that statement. He turned down a metric fuck ton of money to make this movie this way.
He did.
Because he had a lot of studios coming at him to make Terrifier 3 and offering him a much, much, much bigger budget. We're talking, I think I heard as much as $100 million budget to make Terrifier 3, but he didn't want to give up control of the story. So he made this movie, this one's what, a $2 million budget, I think?
I think so.
Like that? Yeah, $2 million budget. So he made this one with a $2 million budget, which in theory he could have made off the profit from the last one. Like he could have just spun it right into this. I get what you're saying. Like you just wanted to Friday the 13th and crank out another one every year because of people liking it. Okay, fine. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But I think if that was the case, I don't think we would have got this movie. I think we would have got a much more stripped down and much less dead kids Terrifier movie.
And what's the fun in that?
I'll agree to disagree. I think that $100 million offer to make a movie doesn't, and you only you make your movie for $2 million. That is not thinking of the intellectual property. That's not thinking of the rights. That's not thinking of the movie that you can make off this franchise. If you sell your idea to make your $100 million movie, that doesn't mean that you're going to lose control. That means you're giving up something. You're giving up something that you feel like you can make more money on your own. I think it's very naive to think, I hate myself for saying this. I think it's very naive to think that he doesn't see some kind of roadmap that he can make a fuck ton of money, like in the long term.
Well, like, I wouldn't be surprised at that.
I don't want to get off the track because I want to talk about this movie, but think about the track of like, well, I want to just be done with this, but like, think about the track of like a Sean Cunningham. You mentioned Friday the 13th. Who owns the rights to that now? What has Sean Cunningham made off of that in the grand scheme? If he would have done a thing like this now and done what Damien Leone is doing now, I think he would have made a lot more money off of this whole Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th thing than he did selling it essentially away. Like, he doesn't really have all that much control over it now.
I mean, that's all hindsight, though. Like, you can't really say that. I mean, you can. You just did. But that's all hindsight. Like, for all you know, like, if he had gone that route, we would have just been watching Zombie Pamela Voorhees for however many movies until he gave it to someone with a better vision. And I wouldn't be surprised if this does lead to bigger paychecks for Leone, but I wouldn't be surprised if that means he's not doing Terrifier. Maybe he gets tapped to do a Predator movie, or maybe he gets tapped to do, he's been very vocal about wanting to do a Friday movie, something else where he does take the big payday and does, deal with all that. I get where you're coming from, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing per se, but I also think it's entirely possible that there might be one person who still cares about his art form and wants to do it his way. And I can respect that if that's the case. But
I hope that he doesn't go from like the Terrifier franchise into another IP like Friday the 13th. I hope he does like something original so we can see
rom-com with murder.
Yes, exactly. Like maybe not a slasher take, maybe something like paranormal with gore. I don't know, like just or creature feature.
I'd love to see him do a creature feature.
Yes, I would love to see that. But I hope that it broadens his horizon for other things, but also like kind of seals the deal with Terrifier, and it doesn't turn it into some like, other franchises that are completely horrible and like beating a dead horse, like Halloween.
Even Friday the 13th.
I love Halloween, but still, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even care about any new stuff coming out. Like, I don't want to see any Halloween stuff for a good 5 years.
You don't want them to lose the thread, basically.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. AI John here. Did you know that we're on the You Run Podcast Network? YouRunPodcast.com is home to great shows like You Gonna Eat That Crust, Pop Culture Reflections Podcast, Voices of the Mausoleum, and many more. Head over to YouRunPodcast.com and find your new favorite show today.
So we've talked all this about feelings on this movie. Let's start with Sean, because I know you're so positive on this one. Do you like anything about this movie?
Clint Howard.
That it?
I have one other and I'll get it out of the way, and then I'll just comment and tear down your shit instead. I love the idea that these two college podcasters have a fucking studio that they sit in this big ass room with their microphones and the TV in the background. They have their camera, like all this shit, and they're just like college kids. I think that's great. That's amazing. That's what we're doing. We're all in this room together. We're just filming this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pay no attention to the three radically different backgrounds behind us. So
upstairs, downstairs. Right. Yeah.
That's us right there.
So how about you, Jordana? What are some of the things you like about Terrifier 3?
I love, to this day, the bar scene is one of my favorite scenes in a movie. Just how excited he was, knocking the girls over, the Mr. Bean theatrical part of it, like just all of it. It was cracking me up. I fucking loved it. What else did I love? I don't know. It's cool to see it. I was scared to see it outside of like what Terrifier was, like the Halloween holiday. Like I was scared to see it in the Christmas setting, but I actually loved the Christmas setting. I also love Sienna in this one. She really comes through for me as like the final girl and like showing her vulnerability and, snapping out at people. Like the podcast girl. I fucking love that scene. Yeah, I'll leave it to those three things.
I still feel like Sienna is more of a character than a final girl.
Yes.
There's so much that's on her shoulders in this movie. Not only is she carrying the movie from an acting standpoint, but if you think about what a final girl is, she's just the girl that ran away long enough to be at the end of the movie.
Right.
Sienna is a fucking bona fide superhero, possibly angel of death in this movie. I feel like that somehow supersedes final girl. She's like
1,000%.
Spider-Man with a sword.
Yes.
But I feel like I'm nitpicking, but every time I see her listed as a final girl, I'm like, I feel like she's a lot more than that. So
she is, though. It's good that you say that because she is more than a final girl.
I mean, no disrespect to final girls everywhere. I think she's outdone you.
Yeah. You can say that he did that right by creating her character. like the cast, like all of it. Like he got that formula right. So at least he's checking that off.
I think he nailed everything with her. One, he picked a actress that's very likable both on and off screen. Like she seems to be a genuinely decent human being, which you can't say about everyone.
Right.
Two, he made her character likable for the most part. I can't think of anything negative to say about her. And three, like with this movie, he managed to show that she's, I don't know how accurate, I don't have a lot of interactions with people with traumatic issues like that, so I don't know how accurate her portrayal is of that, but he made an attempt to try to show it, and it's as good as it is in any other movie that I can think of, especially in this genre, so good on him for that.
Yeah.
For me, though, I love the Christmas theming in this movie. It gives everything in this movie a different look than the other two movies. I felt like I was sitting in the middle of Wonderland Mall in like 1990 or something like that, just very like flushed out tones, a lot of reds and a lot of like bad greens, things that look kind of off, but you don't exactly know why. I really like the overall tone in this movie. And I'll piggyback on that by saying, I fucking love Art's like infatuation with Santa. Like I love how, like you said, how excited he gets at the bar when he first sees him and like loses his shit and knocks some bitches out of the way to go hang out with Santa. Yep. That's great. But even more, I love when he's, laughed my ass off both times that I saw it. When he goes into the mall and he sits in Santa's, throne.
Yeah.
And this bitch ass security guard comes up. My favorite scene in the entire movie is when he puts his frowny face on and points at his chest and points at the Santa sign a couple times. Like, I'm obviously Santa, you piece of shit. I don't know why it's dumb. And maybe it's because he doesn't look a damn thing like Santa in any way, shape, or form. But I love it's David Howard Thornton at his best, is him being a goofball and doing that. The other thing that I like is, and I know I've talked to Jordana about this, I love when he slaps Sienna upside the head at the end of the movie. It's a little like throwaway scene and, she's tied up to a chair and he just walks by and it's the same way Sean would slap me if he walked by me in the bar. It's just a little like whap. And then he goes about whatever else he's doing in the scene.
I love it.
It's little touches that add to the character of Art that maybe they're in the other movies and I didn't notice it, but I noticed them in this one a lot more. And I think it adds a lot to, Sean, you've said this a bunch of times. You like slasher movies where you can almost start to root for the bad guy with it. And I'm not quite there at rooting for Art because I like Sienna that much, but he does a lot of things up until he starts fighting with Sienna where I'm like, I'm kind of not mad at him about any of this because he's fucking up dipshits and being kind of funny about it.
Yeah. The one scene where she's like, I just want him, what does the girl say? I just want to stare into his eyes and blah, 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 blah about, being killed. And then when he goes to, when he's killing her and he just takes his glasses off and he stares at her. Oh my God. I loved it so much.
He boops her on the nose.
Yeah. Oh no, Sean.
I don't find Art the Clown endearing at all. I hate to be like the Roger Ebert of this. I don't find it amusing. I don't find him likable at all. I don't have any reason to root for the character. I just feel like all the fucking joy that I have for characters like Jason or like a Freddy, or I don't really root for Michael. I mean, I guess maybe you do a little bit, but there's just no joy there. Like I find it to be, I don't want to use the line that I wrote it like today about this movie when I was like writing all the different things.
Movie.
No. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to use it right now, but it's not even like,
that sounds like it's hot dog time.
Oh
yeah, that'll be a hot dog time thing, but it's not even like it's some killer thing, but it's like, I just don't find anything amusing about the character. There's like this movie to me feels like this is basically like a story to tell you how Art gets the Santa suit that he's wearing in the trailer. And then there's this other little part, like this little side piece that they tell you about the demon thing. And that's what this movie is, like, to me. And the rest is just like torture porn, essentially. And that's not my thing. Like, I'm not into movies like that. So I can appreciate like all the showpiece, like all the practical effect showpieces and stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's cool that people are still doing that. Like, hey, cool, good for you. But it's just like, I don't know. It's like soulless to me. It's not, I mean, I understand people thinking like, oh, art's funny. Like when you guys are talking about it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I think that I can see why, people would like that. But for me, I just like, that's not, I don't like the character, and there's nothing that anybody could do. Like I feel like the personality, he does have personality, but with him, there are times when you feel like this guy wants to say something. There's something that they want to say, but it's just not there.
It's funny because...
So you brought up the words torture. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. The torture porn part, because I'm with you. Like, I don't like movies like that. And it's weird that I love these movies so much because, like, I don't see it as that. Like, I think he's funny and not, like, I enjoy him as a character. So maybe that, like, changes the perception of, like, how I see it. But, like, I really like Hostel and stuff like that. Like, those types of movies I don't particularly like because it's, like, torture porn to me. You know what I mean? But, like, this kind of is, but I love it. So it's just weird because I understand where you're coming from, Sean, but then there's like that, like I have Art the Clown right in front of me and I have like the sign next to me. So like, I'm like, oh, okay. But sorry, John, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So I could see where you're coming from with the torture porn like aspect of it. I knew that was going to come up at some point in this conversation. This movie is kind of interesting because for a Terrifier movie, I think they actually make strides away from that. And what I mean by that is you see a lot more of the after effect for some of these kills than you do the actual kill itself. And specifically when it comes to the kids that get killed in this movie, you don't see a kid get hit with the axe. You see the after effect. Don't see kids specifically get blown up. You see limbs and shit all over the place. So
you see that kid in the bed all chopped up. You don't see him
chopping him up. Exactly. You're seeing the aftermath.
Well, they didn't actually show the kids get chopped up. So I guess that's cool that they just show them chopped up. I mean, it's just like...
I'm saying
it happened, but it's like Friday the 13th, part 5.
It's more like part 7, but we haven't got to that one yet.
Oh, boy.
But there are scenes where it flips that, specifically like the rat scene with the mother that thinks her daughter's dead.
Oh.
That scene, that kill goes on way longer than it probably needs to. And that scene is, like, to me, the definition of torture porn, because they are literally torturing a woman for however long until she dies from these rats, presumably. So
yeah,
it's kind of both. And that's where I feel like he needs an edit, because there's ways I don't know how you do that scene in particular, because it's so detailed as how they decide to take this mom down unnecessarily. But there's a lot more scenes in this movie where you're dealing with the aftermath as opposed to the actual effect, compared to, you don't have I guess you do, because I just said it, but you don't have as many like bedroom scenes or hacksaw scenes. And the ones that you have, they're not as I still don't think anything's as, even when they shove a chainsaw up a guy's ass in the
guy gets a chainsaw enema.
And I don't feel like it's as grotesque as the hacksaw scene.
I think that's child's play in comparison
that
to a guy
sucks.
getting.
I don't like that movie.
Getting his arms cut with a chainsaw. The girl in the shower gets killed with a chainsaw.
Tits get sawed right in half.
The guy gets a chainsaw enema. There's like so many people that get Vicky or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. That's the clown analog, because fuck the clown, like the girl clown, that just doesn't even happen, right? That doesn't have anything to do with this. That never gets brought up again, never to be spoken about again.
Wait, are you talking about the little girl
right now? The clown girl from 2.
Because she
the one that shits on the floor.
Because she went from 2 and then she was done. So then and that's the other thing is she's transferring, correct? Because she went.
That's what I got out of this. She transferred her fucky like shit on the floor eye to Vicky, and now Vicky is whatever she was.
Because then Vicky
and they haven't explained exactly what she is yet.
And Vicky
rebirthed Art.
Yes, and Vicky was making the dress when they were in the house together, or like in Art's lair or whatever. Do you remember that? Vicky was like making the black and white dress. So I think that she was inherently taking over the little pale girl. Because she was a victim of Art.
Regardless, every kill that happens on screen in this movie, okay, because we're going to say, okay, the kids that blew up, the stupid asshole kid opens a package and it blows up and all this shit die. Okay, cool. Oh, we didn't see that. That's fine. The kid gets hacked up in the bed. We didn't see that. So that's not torture porn. But the dad in the bed, I mean, the person, whoever.
Fuck him. He was being a dick. He had a
Vicky, all this other shit. Chris Jericho, he gets killed. That's not torture porn. The guy in the shower with the chainsaw enemy.
I'm going to stop you right there.
That's changed. That's
Since
not.
when
That's
are you
not
upset
torture
about?
porn.
Since when are you upset about Chris Jericho having anything negative happen?
I'm just making a point. Every kill that happens on screen in this movie, rats get a bad rap because of this movie. That offends me as a rat. And every person that gets killed in this movie, that gets killed on screen, so I need to clarify that. Every person that gets killed on screen in this movie is tortured to death.
What about Quinn Howard and the bartender? They just get shot.
They get shot.
But here's my thing, though. Here's my thing, though.
Santa Claus gets nitrid-free frozen and smashed. Sienna gets her hands smashed, but she can use her hands somehow. I don't know how that happens.
Because the sword heals it. They actually have a line about that in there.
How you are this supernatural being and you have a counterpart that is the same, that looks like a fucking idiot. I hate Vicky's face. I want that thing off the screen. That makes me mad. You are the supernatural thing. You have like all this power, but you can't figure what the fuck is in a cardboard box. You have the power of hell powering your engine, but you cannot figure out what's in a paper box before you give it to somebody. Oh, it's got my sword in it. This fucking sword shit it's got to go. I'm glad it's gone.
And I heard that they weren't even supposed to have the sword in this one, right? Remember? Because he said he was getting rid of all
this roadmap.
Supernatural shit. And I was just like,
all in advance.
Okay, but Sean, all I have to say to you two is, what do you think was going to happen in this movie? Like, each movie gets worse and worse. So did you think that they were just going to like stab someone one time and be like, oh, you're dead? Like, of course he's going to chainsaw some dude's ass because like he saw some. And I love it because it's total Damien saying fuck you to everyone who was like, oh, he's this and that and he hates females. Well, no, I'm going to literally chop up some dude by the ass and his balls. So like, he doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, I mean, I never got just for the record, I never got the idea that he was like this misogynist.
No, and I wasn't saying you, but I was like, a lot of people were like,
I'm just,
I
could
can't
see people,
I mean, to me, it was one of the most creative kills I've seen. To be fair, I've never seen a girl get hacked and actually see her vagina and see it all transpire. It's beautiful, but it was disgusting.
This is why we have a one clown a year limit. So
I know. Sean is upset.
I'm enraged at this movie. I feel
So
like
Sean,
I'm
while
on
you're
like
enraged-
those like Christian parent groups that are like, this is corrupting our kids. Like, I don't think that, because I was actually thinking about that. Like, all the movies in the 80s and shit, all these slashers that all the religious groups would be up in arms about, or even like Silent Night, Deadly Night, which, we're going to be talking about, we talk about. It's like, this doesn't even hold a fucking candle. But I still don't think that this is going to influence people to like go kill other people. You know what I mean? It's a movie.
Right.
But I'm still enraged.
He's still pissed.
So Sean, while you're pissed off, while you're enraged, again, I'm going to start with you. Just keep the anger flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any things you didn't like about this movie that we haven't already touched on that you would like, or that you want to just yell about again?
How long do we have? How long is this podcast
As
going?
long
what
as
time do you guys have to go to bed?
As long as it takes.
As long.
What time do you guys
I
go to
don't.
I'll call in tomorrow. We're fine.
I have a coffee pot.
I think it's slow as shit. This should be called Watch Check the Movie. For me, I looked at the time, how much time was left for so long. 2 hours, 5 minutes. We watched a Jean-Claude
watching
Van
it
Damme.
on the screen the whole time.
I just like had the thing on there. I'm like, oh, fucking Christ. Jean-Claude Van Damme, we watched Double Impact. That was an hour and 50 minutes. That was too long. This is longer than that. And I mean, I was like getting tired of watching Never in My Life Will Have a Black Silk Underwear. I was getting like tired of watching that. But this is like, this takes the cake. 35 minutes plus before anything happens plot-wise. Otherwise, it's just art and, oh, cool, Santa. It's how to get a suit. It's awesome. It took an hour and 5 minutes to even mention the sword. It was over an hour and 5 minutes. It was like an hour 5 and some odd seconds before they mentioned this thing that was so, it's so like.
I thought you had it down to the second on the time.
No, I
know.
Pause, write this shit down.
I clicked the time to see how much was left so often. As great of a showpiece as this is, for special effects, for practical effects. Head technology, fake head technology has not advanced in 40 years. And I'm pissed about that. Like, how can a fake head, when a guy gets decapitated, how can the head still look so bad? How can it be so bad? Like, we've had 40 years. I've seen movies from the 80s that had better heads than this. Again, supernatural.
We just watched Blood Rage.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Supernatural. These guys are don't know what's in the paper box. I already mentioned that. So I don't want to keep that out there. If you haven't seen the second movie, so let's say you go into this movie and you're like, I hear all the kids carrying their skateboards around. They're talking about this Terrifier thing. It's coming out in the theater. I want to go see it. You go see it, you would be totally lost because there is nothing to tie this movie. Maybe, you could argue and say, oh, well, this is like what Vicky or whatever is like the carrier or whatever. She's controlling art or whatever. But if you never saw any of the other movies, you would be lost. You don't know who Sienna is. You don't know who the brother is. You don't know why the dad's important. You don't know why the sword's important besides some fucking hokey ass. Oh, she's an angel warrior. I'm sorry, that's lame. An angel warrior? Really? That's your comic book character? Angel warrior? Lame. But yeah, and chainsaws don't work like that. Like you don't set it down and it keeps spinning. That's not how a chainsaw. That's like totally not safe for a chainsaw. So that's not how those work.
I think that is our main priority is safety.
Yeah.
Chainsaw safety.
He's very
It's a
clean
chainsaw.
too. Did you see him clean the dishes and wash his hands? Like he's a very sanitary, satanic clown.
I mean, aside from the milk he was drinking.
I love that part too. When he's shaking with his Christmas cookies.
Yeah.
He's so cute.
How about you, Jordana? Is there any negatives for this one?
I wasn't done. No, I'm kidding. I'm good.
Sorry.
Stop.
Continue.
No,
Sean.
I'm good. I'm good for now.
Yes, and it's going to be controversial, but I cannot stand Gabby. I cannot stand her. Like, she drove me nuts, and I feel like 30 minutes could have been clipped with their fucking Hallmark in exchange. Oh, I just love you so much. Oh, I was like, oh, cut this shit, please. And then when they revealed that it could have been her, that it was her head, I was like, good. I hope it's not Jonathan. So, Gabby.
Well, you're leading right into what I didn't like about this movie. I don't like Jonathan even being in this movie. If you're going to take a character that survived Art the Clown, for whatever that's worth, and then off-screen him to death, that's fucking dumb. Like, I don't know how good of an actor Elliot Fullman is, and I say that with all due respect because as far as I know, he's only got these 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
He might have something else. If he does, I haven't seen it. I see him on social media all the time, and he kind of annoys me on there, but he's like 5 years old. He's probably supposed to annoy me.
Yes.
Are you telling me you haven't seen Get Rolling with Otis?
I have not seen Get Rolling with Otis.
It is
I'm
so good.
requesting that for the next one.
It is
We
so
do
good.
have a request list, so I'll go ahead and add that to the request list.
Right to the bottom.
It's a long list. It'd take a while to get there.
No, we can bump it.
I feel like it's a disservice to the actor to off-screen him, and for whatever it's worth. I mean, for all we know, it's just some random skull. I guess you don't know for sure that it's him, but I feel like it's a kind of a fuck you to the actor. And I know he's kind of obnoxious as a character, and by kind of I mean he's very obnoxious as a character, at least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But if you're gonna let him survive the second movie and have him be integral to Sienna in this movie, I feel like you should at least, even if you don't show his death, at least show Art walking in the same room with him and like he's really fucked now. It just feels so like blue-balled the way that they treated his character at the end of this movie.
I don't think he's dead. And I think he was used as like a pawn to get Sienna to the level of where she needs to be the demon angel slayer. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I truly do not think that Damien would not show his death. And he did say that after the shower scene, because people were already feeling a certain way about it, he didn't want to...
Too many men have died in this movie already. We better get some more women to die in this.
Yeah, he didn't want to kill Jonathan.
Well, maybe the uncle, he can die, but too many men have died in this movie.
Fuck Uncle Greg, too. I'm glad that his guts were all over the goddamn wall. But anyway...
Could that have been his head?
I think
skull?
that's what I was thinking. I think it's Uncle Greg
possible.
because he went there. And I think Jonathan is being held... I think that Jonathan's going to be Vicky or like in a sense, the little pale girl for the next one, because I think it's going to be a very big battle between Sienna, and they're going to bring him back, so it's even more of a thing. That's my theory, because I truly don't. I'm with you. I was so pissed off. Like when I left the theater, I was like, that is such fucking bullshit. When he did the glasses, I thought I was delusional, because I literally got off my flight, ate Arby's, and went and saw this movie.
As you do.
Coming out of a hurricane. So I was like in another level, but still, I don't think he's dead.
Okay. So that question's going to come back up because we have a game to play later here.
Oh.
So I don't really have a ton to add before we get into final stuff. Does anyone want to tack anything on before we start to wrap up and play our little game here?
I will just add that I think Jonathan is less annoying in this movie because he's just not on screen that much.
He's also been through puberty at this point.
He's a little bit more grown up, I guess, of a character.
I wanted to see more of him in this one, and I think he kind of like the way they put him in college, and I wanted to see more rash. I liked the flip. I liked that because in the second one, Jonathan was the one that was art crazy, Miles County clown. He had all the theories. Sienna and Barb shut that shit down. This one, it's flipped, and I like seeing that, but I think that their mental health, like their family's mental health, also is a huge part of this that we're not seeing until the next one.
I think we're seeing it, but not in a good way.
Yes, exactly.
All right, John, what time is it?
Then you're in for a big treat, bro, because it's hot dog time.
All right, I'm going to screw with the order. I'm going to kick us off. I'm going to let Jordana go, and then I'm going to let Sean wrap us up because I got a feeling he's going to rage. So, this is an easy one for me. If you've seen Terrifier 1 and 2 and are still on board with this franchise, you owe it to yourself to see this one. There's nothing in this movie that's going to make you feel differently about the first two, and there's also nothing in this movie that's going to make you feel radically different about the franchise. For me, personally, I like this one more than the first two, and I think the majority of that comes down to the Christmas theme, because it kind of lets all the, like, questionable bullshit. For me, it's almost like a pass, because Christmas movies are kind of questionable bullshit to begin with. Mm-hmm. I think David Howard Thornton, who we've all sung his praises before about how good he is at playing this character, takes it to the next level. Sienna continues to be an awesome lead for this, and really the grounding factor of this entire franchise at this point. If you like Terrifier movies, if you like a lot of gore, if you're not triggered by kids or animals or whatever else happens in this movie that kills, that's bad, go see it. If you hated the first two, there's nothing in this movie that's going to change your mind, in my opinion. Mm-mm. So it's give me a hot dog. I'm going to at least try it.
Whose hot dog is this? Huh? Is it yours?
Nah. Jordana?
So, I mean, I a lot of hot dogs in the buns for this one. I really enjoy 3. Look at
you, triple stacking one bun.
I think the Christmas factor, like you said, John, really plays heavy into my liking of it now. I love the franchise as a whole. I've always loved 1 and 2. I think 3 is a great addition, and I think that it's hopeful that we'll get some sort of resolution and we'll get a tie-in to everything in this Terrifier-verse. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I liked the serious tones, but then like having David counter it with his Mr. Bean crazy goofiness. So yeah, all the hot dogs for me.
Whose hot dog is this? Huh? Is it yours?
All right, bring us home, Sean. Get the hate train going.
Yeah,
I'm going to be somewhat short, I guess. I feel like, and I just kind of was thinking of this as you guys were talking about it. All the elements of this and all this like fantasy stuff that they're filling into this, it feels like Damien Leone has like hit this nerve of like Marvelification of horror movies, of slasher movies. I feel like that's kind of what he's doing here. But anyways, ultimately, for me, this movie is a movie that clearly has no plot. Damien Leone is just a genius, and he just shoots the shit off the top of his head. He just makes it up as he goes along. I think it's a practical effects showcase. As I mentioned a few times, I think that they use that to try and string the movie together so they can get more into like gore porn and torture porn. And if you're into it, that's cool. This is like a movie for you. Unfortunately, that's not my thing. That's not the kind of movies I'm into. So this is a 0 hot dogs for me. To me, this is essentially a Serbian film with less story and more edgelord. Like trying to be...
So you're back to calling him
as
he's back to
edgelord.
being edgelord.
Oh,
Juggalo.
absolutely. Yeah, this is like trying to be shocking just to be shocking to me.
Did you give it a hot dog rating?
Yeah, 0.
0.
No,
Zero?
hot,
Okay.
I would not spare a hot dog for this. I was so mad watching this movie the whole time. I was hoping that I would like the Christmas stuff, and ultimately, I just feel like it's like a, Christmas. Cool.
I didn't expect you to like this, but I expected the Christmas theming to at least kind of push you a little bit more in the positive direction.
No, it
Clearly,
made me
I'm
madder,
wrong.
I
As
think.
usual.
Yeah, I think it just made me more mad.
I'm like still just trying to process that you compared it to a Serbian film.
Yeah, I feel like this is just like
It's
torture
less
shit.
rape in this.
I mean,
Yeah.
like not
No
like
newborn porn.
I was going to
but-
say that is just like
That
I
has
don't
a story. I feel like that has a story.
well,
And this just to me, it just doesn't. This doesn't have a story. Like
We told you there's a demon, damn it.
okay, there's a
you
demon.
gotta wait, Sean. You gotta wait till the.
I don't want to wait anymore. I'm done. They show the fucking shit. They give you like the fish. This is like the fishing line. They're giving you the worm on the hook. They show the thing in the angel or whatever, like the statue kind of angel thing that's holding this whatever Hellraiser bullshit like that's underground in Sienna's dreams and shit, like that's whatever it's doing. I don't remember what it was doing, like cranking some shit or fucking jacking off. I don't know
welding wood.
what it was doing.
or welding metal.
I thought he looked like an Urkai.
Yeah, sure, whatever. That's an orc, right? From Lord of the Rings. Is that what that? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
one of those things. It's just doing the fucking thing. Like, why do you even
Fuck
do?
Lord
Like,
of the
why
Rings
do
while
that?
we're at it.
And then the whole fucking floor falls in, and oh, Gabby falls in. Good.
Shucks.
Yeah, exactly. And the
That's
sword's
how I was.
gone.
I was like,
yeah, here,
good riddance.
hold the
Bye.
sword.
Fuck Gabby.
I
Fuck
knew
the
it wasn't
kids.
Gabby's skull because the teeth weren't the right teeth, like on the skull.
Well, we made it 55 minutes into this before someone said, fuck them kids.
I mean, I hate to be like that because I have a kid, but like, what do you expect? You knew it was going to happen. It's a Christmas theme. Of course, he's going to kill
Nosy-
the kids. Of course, he's
Nosy
gonna,
ass kid. I
know.
told you not to read the diary.
God
Can't
damn
you just
Tommy.
do what I tell you to do? No.
I told you to close my door, and then I heard the axe, and I was like, "That's what you get for being a little mouthy son of a bitch."
So this week we're doing something different. Usually we ask you a question and look for answers. Instead, this week we're asking for your questions to ask a Terrifier mega fan, which is Sean.
Yes,
All right.
we made you a banner.
So now these are questions for Jordana and Sean. If you would like to chime in, please do, because I'm sure your responses will be just as good.
Yes, they will be.
So we're going to skip around a little because of how I cut and paste these, but over on Instagram, we are going to start with Chaz Presley. Chaz Presley says, film marketing has managed to become Deadpool of horror. I think he's saying this franchise has become the Deadpool of horror.
Okay.
What would you like to see in the next film? Again, I don't know how the first statement and the second statement necessarily correlate, but the question is, what would you like to see in the next?
I think it's kind of touching on the Marvelification of this movie.
I want to know about art because I feel like we've dived so deep to Sienna's story and the Shaw family. I'd like to know about the carnival. I'd like to know about the Terrifier. I'd like to know where he came from, what made him so evil. That's what I want to focus on because I truly think that Art's a great villain and I want to see more structural development on him. So that's definitely what I want to see. And more kids getting killed. No, I'm just kidding.
Sean? Anything you want to see?
What do I want to see from the next film? Like a black screen, and it says the end.
For 20 minutes. That's it.
That could just be
I'll
like
agree with
5
part of that.
seconds.
I agree in the sense that I want to see the series end
Mhm.
in the next one. And
Yes.
even if, because I don't think it will end. I think no matter what happens, like if his version of the story ends at part 4, if this is his Friday the 13th final chapter, fine. If it doesn't end there, I want there to be a defining line of like, these are the Damien Leone movies and these are all the rest. Just like we have with, frankly, all the big franchises. They all have this dividing point where they start fucking up. So I hope whatever he does in the next movie, because I've heard rumors that he might stretch this into like 4, 5, and 6. just fucking finish the story in part 4.
So I'm with you.
And then sell it to whoever you want to do.
Yeah.
Sell it, whatever. Because I no matter what he does, I think there's too much money to be made. Like, you'll sell it to Blumhouse or whatever, and they'll fucking do their thing. And if that's what he decides to do, good for him, make the money. I'm not going to be mad at that. But I hope whatever he's storylines he's got roadmapped out, John, whatever he's got roadmapped out, I hope he puts a hard end for where he wants this story to go.
I'm so with you on that. I want the same thing. I do not, as much as I love it, I definitely don't want 5. I don't want 6. I want 4. I want it to be a solid ending. So it's like, okay, I really do know what I'm talking about. And then fucking end it, because he's going to capitalize off of art anyway. He's already established as a horror icon. So like, there's no need to like keep dragging it on. Like, make another horror movie and make an even bigger name for yourself is what I hope comes of this.
Okay. Next question. Still on Instagram. This one is from No Yeah Totally Dude. And he says, do you think the head in the jar in Terrifier 3 is who they want us to think it is? So we kind of touched on this, but go ahead.
No, it's definitely not Gabby. It's definitely not Gabby. Or it's definitely not Jonathan.
Definitely not Gabby.
No, even though I want it to be. No, I was kidding. I think it's Greg. I think it's Uncle Greg, or someone from the frat building that they were at. And I hope that leads into the final showdown between Sienna and Art and Jonathan, hopefully.
Next up, we have our good friend Scott from over at You Run Podcast, which obviously he's founding member of the You Run Podcast Network. And he says, do you think Art has become too much like the MTV Freddy Krueger and lost some of his fear factor?
Maybe
he hasn't made a rap album yet.
Maybe,
sadly.
Maybe he's not. He's definitely more comical in this one, but I still think he has his moments where he goes back to being sinister and like evil. I do love this version of Art, but I hope in the next one that he's a little bit scaled down to the first one and he's a little bit more sinister and about business instead of being silly, because he's a silly goose in this one.
So this next question comes from this little I don't think any of us know this guy. He's from Feature Creatures DTF. And he says, going to take a stab in the dark and say hi to Jordana. So,
Sam, I love you.
Respond to that however you see fit.
I love him.
I saved 2 here. These are from the same show. One is from Old Nerdy Bastard, who is one of the members of You Gonna Eat That Crust. And he says, are we going to get an early backstory on Art before and during his serial killer days?
Oh, so wait, what's he saying?
He's asking... So I'll read it again. Are we going to get an early backstory on Art, something before and during his serial killer days?
I hope so. I want to know like what made him evil. Like I want to know what happened, and I want to know what drove him to kill the little pale girl, because clearly he does in the newspaper clipping from 2. Well, or that were that.
I think it's going to be a prequel.
Prequel.
I think that whatever they tell you in the next movie is going to be super like implied.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will be its own, like whether they call it Terrifier or not, I think that's going to be its own movie.
I still feel
because there's money to be made there.
Absolutely. But I still feel like Sienna's dad is going to tie into this with Art somehow. I truly do, because there's something up with that. And I don't, because I mean, even what's her name? Brooke alludes to it when her and her boyfriend are in the car when they're outside the Terrifier, that like he started to lose his mind and he was going crazy. So I'm almost like, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be connections in that regard. Hoping maybe that's just me reaching.
Any thoughts on that one?
Do I think we'll see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be a prequel.
Okay. So last question, and this is also from the Crusty Boys. How many showers must one take after watching Terrifier to feel clean again? Also, how do I introduce these films to my wife without her leaving?
Well, I mean, I didn't shower. I let that shit soak on me for days because I loved it. And
just like Art's gloves.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to each their own. I would love to have a hidden camera of her reaction though to these movies.
warm her up with like, I don't know, like some beheading videos or maybe like a Serbian film. I think if she can sit through a Serbian film, she can definitely sit through Terrifier 3.
I still cannot believe that you're comparing a Serbian film to these movies because I'm like, I just feel like it's not even like touching Terrifier, but I don't know.
See, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the answer to how to get her to watch these films without leaving you is wait until she fucks up and say, now you got to watch the Terrifier films.
Like that. Yes.
Because
punishment.
Yeah, it's either punishment or you're going to introduce her to something that she unexpectedly enjoys.
An unknown kink.
There you go.
Terrifier.
This too could be your unknown kink. So, all right, that's all we have for questions. Before we start wrapping up, Jordana, please take a moment. The floor is yours. Tell everyone where they can find everything that you want them to find. Whatever you want to say.
All the socials. That's where you will find me. And 2025, I'm coming back as something different. I'm rebranding. I'm taking the podcast out of my name.
Little Pale Jordana.
Yes, Little Pale Jordana. I'm taking the podcast out of my name and I'm making it more horror based. So stay tuned for that. And then the Terrifying 3 is rocking it into 2025, and Sam and I are doing our thing. So that's it. And I'm probably going to be on here again at some point.
We got to talk about Otis, the whatever.
Exactly. I'm not joking.
Tractor.
Better at it.
Wait, what?
What do you mean, what?
Otis the tractor.
Elliot.
Yeah,
Holt.
like you don't know what we're talking about?
Oh.
Yeah.
Get rolling with Otis.
I forgot the name of whatever.
I want to know about Sal the Rooster.
If you do follow us on all the socials, we're at Dewey Pod Monster, and I pretty regularly share Jordana's things that are shareable. Pretty much all, not all of them, but a lot of them. So you can find, if you can't find her for some reason, find us. We'll make sure that all roads lead back to the Terrifier Queen. Again, we're on all the social medias that matter, though, at Dewey Pod Monster. You can also find all of our previous and upcoming podcasts at crap.town, which is our site. You can leave us feedback there and tell us what movies you want us to watch, like Otis runs over his daughter with a tractor or whatever the fuck it is. And we are on the You Run Podcast Network. All the other shows that are on there are also great, and we strongly suggest that you check them out. And there's probably a bunch of other stuff that I'm forgetting. Sean, please fill me in or whatever.
Much like Nintendo, we're a serial. We're a video podcast, and we're on Spotify and YouTube at youtube.com/@DeweyPodMonster. So if you want to watch our ugly faces, you can do it there.
You know what else has a cereal?
What?
Art the Clown.
Art Krispies, baby.
I'm cutting that out.
Sean.
The stuff we talk about on the show are generally found in the show notes. So if you're interested in that stuff, you can go in the show notes and it's going to be in there. Other than that, sometimes we talk about stuff. It's affiliate links. You click it, get $1. It's pretty cool. It's a cool thing. And anyways, if you want to hear about my Michigan craft beer adventures, you can find me at youtube.drafttherapy.com, or you can find me on all the social media at Draft Therapy.
So that's it. That's all we got. Thank you again for joining us, Jordana.
Of course.
I'm rapidly declining for some reason, but we will be back next week with some other shit. And everyone have a great Christmas.